15th and 17th. We can expand, right? As tonal systems expanded, we add more thirds. We add thirds to 13th chords, become 15th and 17th, without duplicating any notes. Bernie, can we hear these?
That's a big one.
Yeah. Can't get too many more in there, can you? Right.
No.
It goes, so we've got C, E, G, B flat, D, F, A flat, C flat. And here's with some doubling here, doubling of the, depending on how you do it, if you do it as major or minor thirds. So in tertian, which means chords by thirds, larger than the 17th, not every tone is necessarily different. So the size of the chord is determined by distance between the root and the highest new note. And we can see that you can have a 21st chord, even though, we don't really call it that. But so the way you would analyze it is you'd look at what is the root and what is the highest note and what is that interval. And that's what you would end up calling it. Even though this is kind of, in essence, are just kind of polychords in the same way. Too. There's different stacked chords. Here's C major over D 9 plus 9 plus, it's a 19th chord. It's a C 19th chord. 15th chords. Complete 15th or 17th chords are effective in parallel harmony or in progressions. Parallel harmony is when the chords are moving all parallel. We heard that in several examples earlier. We heard that in Skrelbin. We heard that a lot of writers do that. It's interesting sound, parallel. So we have the same voicing, it's just moving. And it's a modern sound. The voices aren't really moving in a way of like voice leading. Everything's just moving all in the same direction. There's no contrary motion. Can I this one, please?
1 second, Norman.
Yes.
Do you mind just going back to the pretty
If I can
simple
do
one
it
second?
here.
I just
Yes,
want to
sir.
do a quick
Yeah.
snap.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Excellent. What does the plus means next to the note? Plus?
The plus, I think, is showing that notes are doubled.
Oh.
Yeah, these notes. So not every note is necessarily different. Here, these notes are doubled. We have C, E, G, B flat, D, F, A, C sharp, E again. So the notes can be doubled. And that's why if you broke it down, you say, well, maybe there's not 19 different pitches there. But the reason why we're calling it a 19th or a 21st is the relationship of this note to the top note, even though there are going to be some duplicated pitches depending on how you build it. Like if you were building this with major or minor thirds, if you had a minor third from the C to E, you would have an E flat up there. But the way it's built here is with an E natural. So there's duplication in these large chords. That's like the sort of cartoon thing, right? Somebody falling down or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. The trick is to how to orchestrate this well. You would not orchestrate it in this fashion. You'd have to space it out. It's actually a very good assignment or sort of exercise yourself to take an example like this and how do you orchestrate this effectively to make it, sound the full weight of the orchestra, like Stravinsky would do. Any ideas how would you approach this? You could add octaves. We could add some octaves.
Sounds like for me, the strings would take care of the lower oomph, and then you put the extensions all in the brass because you get that quality.
All of these high notes up here too. So you said the strings playing this line
I mean,
for the chord.
anyway, just the extensions.
Mhm.
I think, like you were saying earlier, they just kind of appeal to brass.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I think you're right. I would probably put the woodwinds too. I would probably double it. Yes,
And doubling up the octave in like
Yes.
piccolo and flute. so-
right. And I would add some lower octaves in here too.
Yeah. We're talking about the chords, right?
Well, yes, the chords. I mean, the whole piece. I mean, the whole line could be done, but I guess the chords are probably the more
It
problematic.
might be nice to have the lines be smaller.
Which be smaller?
The quarter note line and the eighth note line, have that be less instruments, not all.
Oh, this part, yes, that would be a nice contrast. Have full orchestra hit this, and then have this maybe be, could be woodwinds, or could be brass.
Yeah.
Yes, and then you could take this idea and extend this to a whole very interesting piece by having, large 15th chords, and then a moving line here that gets extended. The most important thing is that you would want to break this up. I was looking at a student's piece yesterday. He's doing the Berkeley Online. Doesn't really matter. But he, for his final, he had all these. He had triads like this. Well, this is not a triad, but he had triads in the brass, all close voicing in trombones, and that you really want to open those up, because it's nice on occasion, but when you spread them out, you start to get much more sound. So what you wouldn't want to do was try to keep it close in like this, I think. I think it would be claustrophobic sounding with this sort of a chord.
How would you, just offhand, your gut sort of go to, how would you orchestrate it and space it, just like bisection?
Well, I guess what I've tried from the bottom, I put the basses, I have the basses on an E, right? I'd have to look at it and think a little bit, but I mean, what I would do is I would break up the chord. I wouldn't keep it in this voicing. So I might have the violins, I wouldn't say, okay, the violins have to do a D. I mean, the easy way, okay, here's cello bass, here's viola, here's second, but I wouldn't do it that way, that would be too easy. So I would probably have the violins, I might put the violins on a D and an E, like up here in a second, doubling this perhaps. I might have a D and an F, maybe as the third in here. And then in general, I would put, I might have trumpet on this note. I might have trumpets on these two notes. I'd put the horns in the mid range with this. I'd break it up. Instead of triads, I'd put it more, I would pick some of these notes and maybe some fifths. Maybe, let's say the horns could play D, and maybe D and C in the middle here. Seconds are kind of juicy with the horns. I'd put trombones, probably playing fifths. I put the, I would probably add an extra higher octave in this. I'd probably put the piccolo on the G flat, oboe, and maybe flute on doubling the piccolo with maybe I'd invert the chord a little bit. Maybe I'd put an E flat above this, so I'd have a high G flat, then an E flat, and then the oboe on the G flat, something like that. I'd have to redo the whole Solino thing.
Rather than put the strings in divisi and have the strings kind of state the quality, you just give them part of the chord.
Yes, I wouldn't try to. You don't need divisi on this kind of a thing because you've got enough pitches. I mean, I might, unless I could find a suitable, maybe a sixth or something to put them in. Yes.
So in like common practice music, normally the strings have a complete chord and the woodwinds have a complete chord. But when you have this many notes,
well, you can't do that, right?
You don't need to do that.
Well, no, you don't. I mean, in common practice, as we got later on in the centuries, everybody has a complete triad.
Yeah.
The winds have a complete triad, the brass have a complete triad, and the strings have a complete triad.
Well,
now,
this is no longer triads. So.
Well, no, it's not. But I mean, what I was going to say about that, now that kind of writing, that's where the Impressionists said no more. We don't need all that doubling, Holst doubling, Wagner doubling, everybody playing the complete chord. Complete members of the chord. So no, in this situation, you to try to say to yourself, I don't know, well, the strings have to play this 15th chord somehow, and then the winds, I mean, if everybody, you'd be impossible to do. Right. So, no, I would pick certain pitches and I would divide it up. You wouldn't need to have each section playing the complete chord by any stretch of the imagination. Because I don't think you really could. Really. I mean, you can't have 5 strings. I mean, it would be silly to try to do it, right? Who would want to do that? Going on that. Okay, to our friend Ives, right? The antipodes. Antipod means the direct opposite. Okay, interesting English word that's really not used too often. So, like I say, if you talk about, I don't know, you know, light and dark are antipodes. You know, they're direct opposites of each other. Those of you who've been in the class before have heard a lot of Ives, and we're going to keep hearing Ives, and it's revolutionary to me. Ives is one of the great revolution again, I keep using that word, one of the great innovators of American music and of just Western music. And his music, and it's just not that well known, but we're getting to know it better. So we have these 15th, 17th, and 12 note chords and clusters we see. Well, this opening, he varies the stacking in perfect fifths. Some of the chords are stacked, like this first chord is stacked in fifths, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, D sharp, D sharp, A sharp, to alternating perfect and tritones. The second chord is D, G, G, D, G sharp, so tritone, tritone, D sharp, tritone, fifth, tritone, okay, fifth, tritone, tritone, tritone. Right? So remember, you're stacking fifth chords. They can be perfect, or they can be tritones. They can be diminished fifths. So he has all of this. We have the whole song here, I think. Also here. Oh no, we don't. Okay, let's listen to this then. Okay. Oh, hi. Come on in. Are you turned up all the way?
Yes.
Okay. Here, you must, gosh, you have to do the same thing you did last time. You had to get this tool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Akira. Go, no. You know where it is, yeah. Thank you, sir. Let's, why don't you go over, you wanna go, are you cool here?
Absolutely.
Okay. Alvin Berg. We've looked at Berg before. Berg, disciple of Schoenberg, one of his most famous students. He took the 12-tone concept and was really able to make it very expressive in ways that Schoenberg, and accessible in ways that Schoenberg's music never was. This is a violin concerto. We also have some, Wozzeck was one of his famous operas. It's still performed a lot today. And so we'll have a little bit of examples of that. But here we see violin concerto. So serial writing, which is 12-tone writing. So he uses a mixture of some serial techniques and just chords by thirds, extended harmonies. So here, this is a 15th note chord in thirds in the clarinet. We can see it, as C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C sharp, almost C major, or D minor major over a C major 7 chord. We can think of it even that way. Here is his idea here. You can see how he repeats his idea. And he uses this technique of writing this Neubenstemma, I think it is, which means the secondary idea. So he, instead of writing dynamics, or he writes dynamics, but he writes this to let the player know that this is a secondary idea and the primary idea is somewhere else on the page. Probably would be this voice. Okay. One more time. moves pretty fast.
It's
Yeah.
a Canon, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, definitely. It's here, been answered here, right, and it goes back here again. Yeah. This is a little different beginning to it. Yes. Now this looks like, yeah. I mean, we could spend a whole course in analyzing his writing techniques. There would be all these pieces. Now this is Ravel chanson. It's we have some 13th chords here. He sees here D, G, D sharp, C sharp, B flat. These are the different roots of them. This is voice, flute, cello, and piano. And look at this, multiple key signatures at the same time written here. So we have right hand the piano is sharps, left hand the piano is natural. This is, I'm sure Bernie could play this and sing probably the part for us, but
Of course.
yeah. Okay, let's take a listen. One more time. Very dissonant chords, really. I mean, it's a little hard to hear, but he's using a lot of dissonance, and he's using these extended chords for dissonant effect. And you see here, interesting writing for the cello, glissandos, arpeggiation, very typical kind of Ravel. So it's funny, this looks very much D minor, right? So he's contrasting all this, and even within the hands, he wants dissonance, right? This is D minor as well, right? D minor or D Dorian, I guess, right? I mean, it appears sort of Dorian. We have a C natural and F natural. But here we have these chromatic 13th chords. Beautiful effect, beautiful mix. By the way, this is important because sometimes when you think about writing, you think, oh, I have to do everything in one key. I've got to, if I'm writing in Phrygian mode, the whole silly dumb piece has got to be Phrygian. It doesn't. I mean, this is in one. Even within the piano part, we have two different harmony ideas. So feel free to mix them, as long as your intent is clear and your heart is pure. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, as long as your intent is clear about what you want to do and you're manipulating the material in the way you want to, you can mix modes within a piece, within an instrument. In any which way you want to.